It's me, 10:45. I finally decided to take a step forward and actually voice over my videos because I felt bad having to watch my viewers blankly stare at the screen and watch the text come and pass and just look at the map move. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, please like the video. Firstly, the history of the World War Z universe is long, really long. If you ask the average Joe on the sidewalk what World War Z is, they would probably look at you confused or say it's the zombie movie and move on, to which you should cave their skull in with a crowbar. I'm just joking, but really, there's more. Our story begins with not the movie, but the comic, where a page references a battle fought between early men and the Solonum virus 60,000 years ago, now in a place in Congo named Katanda. This place marks the first traces where the Solonum virus was found. Throughout history, there were a lot of encounters with zombies, and they were, for the most part, small epidemics with no significance. A lot of things, such as Hadrian's Wall, were instead built to keep zombies out in this timeline, and that was that. Our story begins in World War II era Japan. It is 1943, and they are about to utilize the Solonum virus to do their dirty work. The operation was named Cherry Blossom, and after a small lab break, the Japanese authorities decided that it wasn't worth it, so they cancelled it. Around a good 20 years later in 1961, the Soviet Union wanted to do what Japan did by bringing the Solanum virus back and using it as biological warfare. Like Japan, the thing escaped, and so the Soviet Union decided to straight up vaporize a part of Siberia, just to make sure. 40 years later, a child in Chongqing decided to swim in a lake, and lakes in the World War Z universe are not good to be around. Anyways, the lake was a part of the Three Gorges Dam which was being built by China at the time, and the Solanum virus somehow seized inside to this dam and infected the 12-year-old boy. After coming home, the boy just began biting the people around him, making them contract the virus and zombifying them. Bit by bit, the city of Chongqing began to face a series of homicides and acts of cannibalism, which the government was 100% aware of. The government wanted to do nothing with it, so town by town, the virus continued to expand and infect the people. The situation got bad, but the government at the time still didn't care and thought it would just go away. It didn't. Local news outlets began publishing about the virus's spread, but these publications were immediately censored and wiped off by the Chinese Communist Party. It got way worse, which prompted Communist China to attack Taiwan to divert attention from the problem. Japan and the United States were particularly unhappy with what China was doing, but in mere weeks they were about to get more unhappy. China plays a huge role in the black market, where trade happens constantly. Chongqing was a hub for this black market organ trade, and a shipment from China arrived to South Africa. The first cases of the Solanum virus were reported in South Africa, while China had it way before and was trying to hide it. While South Africa was affected, shipments from China were also en route to Germany, who also suffered from the Solanum virus. Each day, China continued to get worser and worser until they had to break it to the world that the Solanum virus was hollowing them inside out. The infection in South Africa spread to Mozambique, Namibia, Zambia, Angola, and other South African countries who had very low hygiene levels, and coupled with the fact that populations of these nations is very high, a lot of people got zombified and began attacking their way north. The news spread to the United States as soon as the news broke that South Africa was facing an epidemic. People were extremely concerned about a zombie virus coming over to the United States and doing its thing. The government was too busy fighting its wars in the Middle East, but the United States had participated in wiping out solanum epidemics back in the past, so it seemed the time came again. The United States Army landed in the port cities of Cape Town, East London, and Kabaha and aimed to destroy the virus. The operation did okay, but it really wasn't enough. The worst part was now that from trade, the solanum virus that reached the United States with small outbreaks along the East Coast. People were panicking until a rich businessman created something known as the phalanx, a supposed drug that would make people immune to the solanum virus. Around this time, people found out that the virus tended not to infect chronically sick or just sick people, which led to a lot of people trying to get infected by something. As the world began to crumble, Israel, of all countries, were apparently prepared to face off against the virus, thanks to India, which reported that they were fighting the Rakshasa, translation, the undead. Israel immediately signed a peace deal with Palestine and immediately began constructing walls in its borders, forming a unified Palestinian state where Israelis and Palestinians live together. Romania also got the news. The phalanx was exposed as a regular cure for the rabies, which kick-started a situation known as the Great Panic, and amongst this panic, tensions between Iran and Pakistan began to boil over due to the refugee wave entering Iranian territory known as a region known as Balochistan. Pakistan simply said that there were nothing they could do about the refugee waves, which angered Iran. Refugees breached Meherstan, Khazarkan, Saravan, and Shabahar and continued moving inland as the Solana virus was devastating Islamabad. Iran launched its nuclear missiles at strategic Pakistani cities, which resulted in Pakistani missiles evaporating Bandar Abbas, Tehran, Mashhad, Tabriz, and Isfahan. Countries bordering Iran immediately took their share, and Azerbaijan immediately took over the West and East Azerbaijan provinces. When the wave of refugees traveling Central Asia ended up in Europe, the European continent was decimated as Serbia turned on Bosnia and Chechnya increased working towards independence. The armies of Europe resorted to hiding in the mountains, and Switzerland was arguably one of the least affected countries in the ordeal. The zombies marched through the United States in the meanwhile. Unreliable sources and the government claimed that the Arctic was a safe spot, and during the travel, 11 million people died on their way to the North Pole traveling through Canada. To signify that they still had the upper hand in terms of manpower and overall strength, the United States Army landed its troops in Yonkers to reclaim New York. The problem is, it was a hot summer day in heavy military suits, and watching a world you knew and grew up with crumble before your eyes is not exactly a very motivating thing. Anyways, when they arrived there, they were overrun by 4 million zombies encroaching to their location. In the end, the mission was a terrible failure, and this proved that the United States still had the upper hand. People continued to panic. Dallas, Omaha, Bismarck, these cities were overrun until the zombies reached Denver and the Rocky Mountains, where they stopped. The United States utilized the Rediker Plan. A guy named Paul Rediker came up with the plan, which involved sacrificing small bits of holdouts to zombies to protect a larger holdout and let them survive. The plan worked in the Army's favor, and the United States was partly salvaged. Hawaii was chosen as the new capital of the United States, and Los Angeles was the largest city in the United States. Researchers aboard the International Space Station observed droves of zombies marching through Earth at the time. Speaking of the International Space Station, Due to no support from the world during a time of crisis, the space shuttle began drifting closer to the Earth's atmosphere. In the coming years, the United States faced massive reforms to protect its population and itself. Canine dogs were being cherry-picked for the oncoming liberation and retaliation against the zombies. Canine dogs were separated into two categories, alphas and betas. Alphas, when subjected to zombies, were aggressive, locking eyes, and showing signs of anger. Betas, on the other hand, tended to cower, whimper, droop ears, and overall show signs of weakness. Alphas were picked to be used in the wars, and the United States created a special type of fabric that rendered bites ineffective. Don't ask me how, they just did it. The US invented high precision rifles. They were called standard infantry rifles to quickly and cleanly kill off zombies. These rifles were affectionately called SIRS, and instead of wearing bulky, heavy mob gear, the troops wore lighter and more neat clothes, as their jobs were reduced to just sniping from a distance. The 2016 Honolulu conference was attended by a majority of remaining countries, and at the end of the conference, the United States drew up plans to kill and wipe out all the zombies on Earth, a campaign that would be called the Zombie War. It was time to put the United States' new tactics to use. Boomboxes and other music playing devices were put into certain kill zones to lure in zombies. A classic was The Trooper by Iron Maiden. The Battle of Hope was fought between the United States Army and the zombies, and amazingly, hundreds and thousands of zombies were killed with not even one human casualty. It was a miracle like nothing they had seen before. People were ecstatic and they believed that they were going to win. A campaign named the Road to New York was drawn out by the army, and precisely, the US Army began pushing the zombies back to Maine with casualties less than 1,000. Sniping took a while. Collecting zombies and putting them into a single spot was a hard job to do, but the United States, at the end of the day, overcame that, and the American continents were liberated in a few months. The next year, Europe was planning their own uprising with assistance from the United States. At this stage, zombies had begun to rot, and that meant there were zombies that were getting weaker and less mobile. Hungary and Romania overcame their rivalry and worked together to kick the zombies back. The Middle East, North Africa, and the remainder of Asia followed. Russia fought the zombie war with raw guns and ammunition from the World War II era, unlike America's careful precision. The road to Moscow was undoubtedly rough, and more men died as the Russians came kilometers closer to Moscow. It was at the Battle of Kostroma that Father Sergei Ryskov, after witnessing too many deaths by voluntary death, a major sin in religions, and you probably know what I'm talking about, states that he received a message from God which commanded that the priest must be the ones to responsible to release the infected from their burden. So, after reporting this to his division commander, the message of God was received by every chaplain, and they carried out the final purification. This also resulted in a morale increase, the common soldier now believing that God was with them. Faith became an important part of the war effort, and the Russian Federation became the Holy Russian Empire, the zombie war now being promoted as a holy war, a crusade against death. Soon, the government itself transitioned into a theocracy, the former president now also being the head of the church. The war raged on. New strategies were refined. faith, and nationalism motivated the troops, and the western territories were not just taken, but also expanded. As Belarus was still in the hands of the undead, the new Russian Empire took it, and victory was declared soon after. Russia entered the conflict as a fractured, fragile democracy and emerged as a strong imperialist state, the largest on Earth. I don't know how they managed to suddenly have a religious miracle after seeing so much death and immediately regaining their composure and morale, especially, but it happened, and I guess that's how it is. Finland and Iceland was still overrun by zombies, and the world's oceans were full of zombies roaming the sea floor. They couldn't drown. These regions were called white zones, and every now and then, zombies would emerge out of the sea to attack sea countries like Britain or Spain. I guess that's what happened in Katanda a while ago. Housing prices inland rose in as people began moving inland. The United States kept their capital in Hawaii until they were absolutely sure that DC was safe. Oil was essentially gone due to the nuclear war between Pakistan and Iran, and the remaining oil was collected up into a single trust zone in the Middle East, shared by the world. It seemed that the world had to move on from fossil fuels and move into renewable energies to survive the next decade. But in the end, humanity overcame the Solnam virus, and humanity won World War Z. I hope you enjoyed this video. It is my first video where I did a voiceover. Please tell me what you would like for me to do for the next video, or if you'd want me to go back to the textiles. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and goodbye.